Hello, Comic-Con. How are you? That's how I test my mic. It seems like we were just here last year, and it's been a very different year for us. I can't wait to talk to you all about it. First, let me make some introductions. To my immediate left is Frank O'Connor, Franchise Development Director for Halo. To his immediate left, Kevin Grace, Franchise Manager for Halo. Greg Bear, I believe you all know him, legendary writer. To his immediate left, Karen Travis, award-winning legendary writer. And to her left, a guy who snuck on the panel, Bernie Burns. Yeah, of Rooster Teeth. So, like I said, we have a lot to talk about, and I wanted to start by looking at you, Frank O'Connor. Can you tell us a little bit about, we've released a couple map packs,
Yeah.
Cryptum.
Reach even since last time.
Reach. Mm-hmm. We've announced a couple things.
Yeah, we've had a really busy year. 343 has been working in relative secrecy for a couple of years on a game called Halo 4. So I'd just like to give a quick shout out to about 200 people back in the audience who had to lie to their spouses and their moms about what they were doing every day, working on a side scroll and shoot them up with a spaceship and a cat. So we've been working on Halo 4, and also our publishing team and a bunch of other engineers, artists, and luminaries at 343 working on a side project, but a very big side project called Halo Anniversary, which is a remake of Halo Combat Evolved, popular shooting game from 2001.
So we'll just dive right into the fiction, shall we? Mm-hmm. So normally, when people expand universes, at least the universes that I've seen get expanded, they sort of go in one direction. You're usually either going forward or backward in time, either new stories or prequels. We're doing both, and I wonder, what is it that caused you guys to sort of think, well, gosh, we just want to have it be extra hard, so let's go in all the directions. Yeah. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so you make a good point, but I think what we're really doing is going forward. About 2 years ago, we made a decision. Previously with Halo fiction, things like Halo Wars, other Halo novels, we've been very careful to make sure they were encapsulated in a nice, safe bubble, sometimes literally in the case of like Ghosts of Onyx. And the reason for that was so that it didn't interfere with the ongoing game process. And when you make a game, you have to cut things, you have to change things, so you have to be extra risk averse when you're making a game. So any fiction that might tie into that game or feed into that game has to be super carefully managed. And about 2 years ago, we made a decision that it was cool, but it wasn't ultimately satisfying. It wasn't really enriching the universe and connecting the pieces of the universe in the way that we wanted to do that. So we had a philosophical challenge, and so from now on, every single piece of Halo fiction, whether it be a novel, a comic book, the terminals in Halo Anniversary, everything is going to be connected to the universe proper, and everything will have meaning and resonance. That doesn't mean you're going to have to buy a book or read a book to understand a game, or vice versa. All these things will work in a standalone way, but we wanted to make sure that when you're reading Primordium early next year, and then subsequently playing Halo 4, there will be resonant connections where you say, damn, that was cool. I wasn't expecting to see or hear about that event, person, or situation.
So when we made that decision to tie everything together, it made our lives much more interesting, inheriting 10 years worth of fiction and making sure that everything we do in the future fits with that, supports it, and ultimately makes all the earlier stuff, ideally, much, much cooler as we go forward. So it's a great universe. We got lots of stories to tell, and we got lots of different ways to tell them. And sometimes you need a Spartan and a laser and apparently a cat, you said. And sometimes you need Greg Bear or Karen Travis with maybe a laser and a cat. So it's a great big universe, and there's lots of different stories to tell, and It's a bit of a sticky wicket trying to keep them all tied together neatly, but that's our job going forward.
Yep.
So now you've made me think that everybody in the room wants to know. So then that means that these two new trilogies also relate to Halo 4 and the new trilogy there?
Yeah, I mean, maybe now's a good time to pass over to Karen. Karen's, the basic brief that we gave Karen was, it's 2553, Master Chief is missing, the universe is in chaos, go. And is that fair description of your brief?
Yeah, I mean, my immediate response was, right, okay, I can actually forget about the Master Chief and do something entirely different. Yeah, and I think one of the challenges when you're bridging a gap up to a game, because obviously I knew I was running into a game, is to say initially to the franchise, okay, if we're starting there, what do you need to happen by this stage? You know, I actually need an end point, so then I can work out the path by which I get there. And you know, you sort of have their shopping list of the things that they need in, so that, you know, it leads into the game, and you say, right, okay, there are some fixed points, and I'll just fill in the gaps, and then you just go off and go crazy, which is fun. I find myself constantly going back and saying, are there any people that you need in? Are there any characters you need floated early? And then, you know, have you actually decided on their characterisation? So, I mean, there's no point introducing a character who's then totally different in the game. So, part of it is looks very dull on paper, which is actually just planning out this timeline, who needs to be where, when, but actually what I found was I had this huge wide open field, so I decided to look at the characters that we don't really see much of. Some of the characters who don't wish to be seen because they would rather be lurking around in the shadows, and some of those that I think just need a bit more screen time, like the ODSTs. And, you know, I said, is there anything off limits? Well, no, not really. Good. Okay. And there were some things that had always fascinated me, and one of them was the Office of Naval Intelligence, because they are very bad people, but they want to be good. So I've had a lot of fun fleshing them out. I mean, I'm not sure how far to go with the details, so what I'll do is I'll stop here and I'll wait for a cue on a later question about what I can and can't tell you. But
Wow, thanks, just in time. Kevin was going to leap over Greg to get to you.
So while we have you, Karen, talk a little bit. We learned in the Halsey Journal that there were these sort of rehabilitated Spartan 2s that we had previously thought had washed out of the Spartan 2 program. And I'm wondering and kind of hoping that your story can introduce us to some of those previously unknown guys and girls.
There's one who pops up. And, you know, she doesn't have happy memories of the programme, so it's, I think, one of the interesting things, although it isn't a book about Spartans. I mean, I want to stress that this is not a book about Spartans. You know, there are lots of other Spartan books, and there's so much of the Halo universe that I wanted to look at that hadn't been looked at before. But you have to ask, did everyone think the Spartan program was really so tickety-boo and the best thing that ever happened? There's quite a few people who suffered very badly from it, and there's a lot of stuff coming back to haunt people, not least of which Catherine Halsey, because, you know, Now, there's a girl with a record. We had very interesting conversations about her, and I sort of debated whether to go back and have a look at her or not. But in the end, you know, she's got such an amazing psychiatric profile that Dr. Travis had to get in there and find out what her problem was. But it isn't mainly about her, because I think, you know, given the size of her ego, she would love to dominate every book, because, you know, she thinks she's, you know, she has this godlike sort of sense of herself being able to solve any problem. But then she's got problems that she can't solve. It's for me, what's been interesting has been looking at the other characters and the other parts of the Halo universe that are out there that actually support this project, and you know, what's happened to people, where have they gone? Who's going to come back and say, you remember what happened 40 years ago? Because we do.
Fantastic. So Karen is charged with taking the post-Halo 3 events and bringing them forward. On the other hand, Greg, you are charged with going back, I don't know how many years, hundreds of thousands of years?
Well, yeah.
100,000?
Probably on the order of 2 or 3 million years by the time we get the whole thing done, but certainly we're starting at 100,000 years ago during a crisis point, which is well known in the Halo games as to what happened 100,000 years ago. Now we're filling in some of the details, and I've been amazed at how much I've been able to collaborate with these guys to help fill in the details. It's like being asked to, create Superman's backstory. So, oh yeah, how about a planet called Krypton? Which is what we've been doing. We are introducing characters you are quite familiar with but haven't perhaps met yet, the Didact. We have a young forerunner who's trying to find his way in a very complicated social society, and he's been jerked out of it and is suddenly now undergoing a major transformation by the end of Halo Krypton to, in a sense, become, well, we won't spoil that. But we've got all of this background material, and for me, it's really having all of these tools at my disposal to create stuff. I think the Master Chief and the Spartans are two unmixed strains of DNA somewhere embedded in one of my human characters in Halo Krypton. We're not sure about that yet. We haven't actually done the diagram yet. But some of the attitudes and everything are starting to develop there. Plus, we're going very, very deep. We're going into what the precursors did and what their whole program was, and that'll be realized over the next 2 books. So it's good, stimulating fun for me. It keeps me busy up nights trying to figure out what these guys really want me to say.
But you do mention in the book that the lessons of the precursors and the forerunners, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you think that is.
The lessons?
Yeah.
Hubris, of course. When you're writing a wide galaxy-spanning story like this, you're actually dealing with godlike powers, and gods always screw up, as we know. And it turns out the forerunners screw up, and it's possible even the precursors screwed up, but we haven't determined that yet. There's a lot of background machinations, of course, in a story this complicated. And the gods always do have interesting things for the humans and the forerunners to engage in, like perpetual war. We've learned that the humans and the forerunners met in battle 10,000 years before my story starts, and the humans were defeated. But the librarian has moved in. She has this penchant for humans, which severely upsets her husband, the Didact, and the humans and a lot of forerunners can't figure out how this pair ever got together, the librarian and the Didact. A life worker and a warrior servant. It seems like an odd match, and from their point of view, I think they're blissfully happy, but they rarely meet each other because the Didact has been locked away in his Krypton for 1,000 years.
That's why they're happy.
Yeah. That's right. It's a good working relationship. And she's been off nurturing human beings on a place called Air de Tyrene, and on other places, on arcs and halos. The book I'm working on now is actually set entirely on a rogue halo, which we saw at the end of Halo Krypton. And I'm going to have great fun in the next few chapters with that rogue halo. So we'll just leave it at that.
And actually, a quick update on progress on both of those books. Karen's what I'd call 99.9% done. She's just waiting on some final notes from us, really. And it's an amazing book. And Greg's about, by his own telling, 80% done.
85, maybe 90.
Yeah, and it's a really nice situation to be in, to have this much of our universe understood this far in advance, because typically we're chasing to catch our own tails at the end of shipping a game schedule. To say have this much fiction planned out this far in advance, it's a real luxury, and it's just going to feed into the quality of everything that we do going forward.
I just have one question from one of our forum users. Her name is Velvet396. She wanted to know, when your stories are over, what is the difference of time between when the Halo story begins and your story's end?
In the third novel, I believe it's going to be the Crisis. So that will be, I'm not sure we quite agreed on the name for the third novel.
Yeah, but to Greg's point, we might go all the way up to midnight.
Right, exactly. And possibly even a little bit after. Yeah. We have to decide about that. But when you're dealing with a Greek tragedy, which is what this is, you really do have to follow through on the actual tragedy.